going to zoom in over here in the west with the hike up to Donaldson, and from there over to Emmons, back over to Seward, and down to a place where I camped the first night. If you get in here like this and do kind of a fly around these peaks, you can see some of the terrain a little bit more clearly. There's some steep stuff over here on Emmons, as well as some wet stuff on the trail in between, and then there's some steep stuff on both sides of the peak of Seward. And if you notice, my track in here actually came back over Donaldson and accidentally headed back down that way before I came back up this way and went there. So from there, the next day, I had picked up where I had camped down here and went up Seymour first. We'll try to give the perspective on that. And somewhere in here, I think, is where I banged my head on a blowdown and put a good gash in my scalp. Finished up, did some first aid when I got back down to the bottom, and then did the hike down to Bradley Pond through the Cold River and Duck Hole area. This was the end of the day. Climb up this little hill was tiring. You can kind of see in here, I had to search around the woods to find the actual location of the lean-to. I spent the night there, and then the next day did the Santanoni Range up Panther first, and then through the gap over into the mud bog between Times Square and Cooch, and then back down. From there over to Santanoni, and then down the Santanoni Trail rather than coming down the way I had gone up. But this put me out at the bottom, about a mile from where my backpack was, so I had to make this trip back here to pick up my backpack before I could then hike out this direction over to the Bradley Pond trailhead where I was picked up. 3 days later, came back and hiked in from the same location up to the East River trailhead, and then along the East River Trail over to the base of Allen. That day I had some discontinuity with my GPS. As you can see, I got 4 segments here to cover the trail up and back down Allen. You can see up here near the top, I did go about 100 meters past the point at which I should have cut over to the left side of the falls in order to pick up the trail going to the summit. Then coming back down and back out at the bottom, I picked up the backpack and then headed up to Lake Colden and camped in the McMartin Lean-To in the vicinity of Lake Colden. You can see my crossing of the dam by the flowed lands right there, and somewhere in this area is where the Hanging Spear Falls location actually is. It's a pretty beautiful area. Not much traffic. The following day, after spending the night at the McMartin Lean-To, I followed this trail, which is in blue here, up to Cliff first, and then Redfield, and then back down, and because it was only like 2 o'clock, I then went up Colden through the stairs, and then back down, and then back to camp the next day with a prediction for bad weather in the late afternoon. I climbed Marshall in the morning, but opted to just hike out rather than try to take on the McIntyres that day. Got out at the Adirondack Lodge. I came back in there the next trip and picked up Street and Nye, and then Phelps and Tabletop. There was a high water area. I tried to walk around here on the way out. I ended up just pushing through it on the way back. And then on the next day, did the McIntyres with Algonquin, Iroquois first, and then right on the way back out. On the next trip in, came in at the Adirondack Lodge, hiked in to the Lake Arnold area, looked at potentially camping here, and then with the hope next day of coming over to the Van Hovenberg Trail, but opted to come down to Feldspar Lean-To, drop a pack there, did Gray and Skylight that day, and then spent the night here at the Feldspar Lean-To. The next day, hiked over Marcy, Haystack Basin, spent the night at Slant Rock Lean-To, and then hiked out past Johnsbrook Lodge to the garden parking lot, and then down into Keene Valley. Got picked up. The next trip in, I left my car at the garden parking lot, hiked into Johnsbrook Lodge in the dark, spent the night there. The following day, did the remainder of the Great Range with Saddleback, Gothics, Armstrong, Upper and Lower Wolf Jaws, and then spent the night in Johnsbrook Lodge again. The following day, did Big Slide, and then I came back down, picked up my pack at the Johnsbrook Lodge, and hiked over the Wolf Jaws Gap into the Adirondack Mountain Reserve, and hiked out at the trailhead by the Ausable Club. I hiked back to get my car and drove home. The next time I came in, I was hoping to get a reservation at the AMR parking lot, but couldn't on the day that I wanted it, so my first trip out that time was Great Giant Mountain and Rocky Peak, and then back down. The next time back in, I was able to get a reservation, but only for a day hike, so I came in and did Sawteeth, Colvin, and Blake, and then back out. Then another day hike, Dial, Nippletop, and back out. And then I finally got an overnight reservation for just one overnight. So I came in and spent the night at the Bouquet River Lean-To, and the following day did a Dick's Range traverse clockwise down through the valley. Had to go back up the big climb over Dick's here at the end in order to get out, and then hiked out to the AMR trailhead and drove home. From there, I guess I skipped a section back here after having gone the Dial Nippletop route. While I was waiting for the overnight in the Dick's Range, I did go up to Cascade and Porter and hike backwards to the Marcy Field trailhead, and then back down into Keene Valley to cover the rest of the road that I had to pick up there. So after doing the Dick's Range, I went back to where I had left off up there and hiked from there up through the Jackrabbit Trail, Bartlett and Sterling Roads, the Flume Trail Network to the Atmospheric Sciences Research Center, and then on the final weekend, Saturday, did Esther and Whiteface. And you can kind of zoom in and see what that terrain looks like a little closer.